Hello, good day. This is Mr. Shadrach with the Shadrach Safety Institute, coming at you with another NEBOSH tutorial and past paper session from the Shadrach Safety Institute. This lesson is the completion of the chapter on health and safety culture, and I just want to draw your attention to the respective part of the syllabus here that would have covered in the previous lesson, as well as some of what we would complete today as well. So we would have looked at verbal, written, and graphic communication on the previous lesson, and then just to the end of that one as well, we would have looked at cooperation, consultation with the safety representatives, and then to the end here, the health and safety committee. So what we have remaining is just a bit on training. When is training needed? And just to take it from the syllabus here, upon induction, training is needed. If there's a job change, training is also needed. Process change, introduction of new legislation or new technology per se. So let's look at this now. Once that is completed, if you have your syllabus, remember this syllabus is on the NEBOSH website. Under resources, it's 3.2. That shouldn't take us very long, and at least we have actually done it there, believe it or not, on the syllabus already. We want to just get into the last outcome, which will be 3.3, organizational factors, job factors, and individual factors, and how these could positively or negatively influence safety culture. So let's get into that right now, in fact. Right, so we'd have looked at training before. Just let me get rid of some stuff here. Right, so training improves human reliability as it reduces the chance of human failure. Types of training include induction training, job specific included job change training, new technology training, refresher training, introduction of new legislation, management training such as the IOSH Managing Safely 5.0 course, right? So some of this you'd have seen it just there on the syllabus itself, but again we have it on this slide, right? So types of training, basically induction, job specific, new technology, refresher training, etc. So when is training needed? Upon recruitment, at induction, a new risk or increase in the risk level is expected. Increase in employment of vulnerable employees, for example those that are young or disabled. A requirement of a new client or insurance company. Job change, process change, and again you can think of any other when would somebody want additional training. All right, basically the answers for those is whenever you have a change, for a particular job position. For example, an employee may have been given additional responsibilities. For example, an employee who may not be in safety may have been, designated a health and safety representative from the previous lesson, or maybe simpler put, the person could have been, selected or volunteered to be a first aider, so then they need to be trained to fulfill that position as well. When is training needed? Introduction of new legislation, introduction of new technology, recommendation from an auditor to keep up to date with a national or global best practice such as IOSH Managing Safely 5.0 course, or process safety management course that are the industry norms, right? So here we have two recent training in the world anyway, right? IOSH Managing Safely, probably the most popular course for managers worldwide, and then the process safety course worldwide has pretty much taken up to be one of the the most demanded courses they have in the NEBOSH fleet of courses anyway. Typical contents of an HSC induction training. So this is quite an easy one. This is if you'd have gone to a company, perhaps your first day or maybe for shutdown, what would they have told you in that initial opening meeting? So we have some here. You will be given some guidelines along the HSE policy, its stated goals, etc. For example, that if you are in that company, they'll be able to tell you that, we at Demas Oil, we are committed to, maintaining your health and safety, etc. Let me try to get that slide back there. It seems to be doing its own thing, right? So arrangements for communication and consultation. For example, who maybe is your supervisor? How do you report to them? The HSE advisor, managers on site, and the reporting lines. What is the accident reporting procedure? What is the fire and emergency procedure? Location of welfare arrangements, etc. So this is a simple question. What would be the typical contents of an HSE induction training? Right, so that was it there. There is a past paper for this, but I'm going to leave it at the end. Let's move on to the next concept. This is 3.3. How human factors influence behavior positively or negatively. And if you would have been in this session, it's health and safety culture, you would have probably had some of this already, that human factors involve the following factors that could influence behavior at work in a way that could affect the health and safety. So human factors, despite they using this term human factors, this is a phrase really, and what it's taken to mean, it's taken to represent three sub-elements. So these three factors here would make up what we call human factors, right? So we have human factors comprises then of the job, the individual, and the organization. And I was mentioning the definition of culture. Culture actually had that there were two things that make up culture: the organization and the individual. So if you add one more to it, which is the job that the individual will be doing, you have the term that is referred to as human factors, right? So the whole concept here is very similar to the health and safety culture. Individuals bring to their job their personal attitudes, their skills, their habits, their personalities. The above may have a negative effect on task performance or incompetence if they are not in line with the company's health and safety policy, right? For example, if a person has a good attitude towards health and safety, you'll have a good health and safety culture. If they have a poor attitude, you'll have a poor, a negative health and safety culture. So the individual factors that make up culture or make up human factors can be grouped into physical as well as mental factors. Typically, a NEBOSH question may ask you for what will be 8 individual factors that could influence the health and safety culture, and you can simply get them from, I guess, thinking about a person. I guess thinking about yourself, what about you, could actually influence a health and safety culture, maybe negatively or positively. And, I think we covered this in culture already, but you can group some of these as maybe a physical factor, and then some of them being, a mental risk factor. So physical factors is actually not on this slide. Physical factors could be things, like your age, your size, your height, fitness level, right? So those would be like your physical factors. And here we have some mental factors. We have things like maybe your personality, your fears, your phobias, your stress level, if you're on medication, your education, language, etc. Right? So it's really about it's 8 marks, so you can probably give them 4 physical and 4 mental factors. Special needs as well, right? All of those could be taken to be mental risk factors. So the physical factors, I mentioned them there: height, weight, strength, fitness, age, disability, gender, right? Medical conditions. And you can probably give them, like I said, 4 and 4. And I remember some of these could be like, some medical conditions can be physical, right? Maybe like a broken or a sprained hand or bone. But then some medical conditions could also be psychological, right? Depression and whatever have you. Right, the organization, again, this is straight from the definition for culture. Culture needs to promote a positive culture, or they need to promote a positive safety culture. Culture needs to promote employee involvement and commitment at all levels. Leadership needs to demonstrate that deviation from established health and safety standards is not acceptable. Adequate resources, time, money must be provided to the company and as well as to the employees. Proper communication on the part of the management, the organization to the employees, would foster a health and safety culture. And of course, this is really the last couple of slides to wrap up the whole chapter on culture, because we looked at communication as a separate lesson, being verbal, written, and graphic, and a means by which the company could influence, the employees if their culture was seen to be negative. So the really only new one here would have been the human factors. And human factors in this case here, the job aspect of human factors would just be the job that the individual is doing, right? And then how does that influence culture? So the task to be done, the workload, the environment where the work is done, the procedures for doing the job, the layout of controls and displays for doing a task, the frequency, duration, work patterns, and possible work breaks are all determined by the organization, right? So I guess the idea here is that if the worker does not have a say in the way the task is done, there is a heavy workload, the environment is hot, it's not, conducive to work, the layout of controls are far apart, workers work very long hours, very hectic shifts. What that can do is negatively influence the health and safety culture. So not just the individual or the organization, but also the way the work is done or the way the job is done also influences the health and safety culture. Right, the next couple of slides is just for interest's sake. These are a couple of definitions you'll find in chapter 3 in your book. So just to run through them. These are not really exam material, but it's good to know because these would have been more in line with the employee mental risk factors then. So aptitude is a person's capacity for learning something, and aptitude is an innate ability to do a certain kind of work. Aptitudes may be physical or mental. So what we try to do in safety though, and what the lesson would have had in it, the one on communication, is that if somebody's attitude was poor, we would try to influence their attitude. Right now, this slide does not say attitude, it says aptitude. And aptitude, you can think of this as your God-given ability. We do not really try to change that, right? What we try to do though, this is more in line with trying to match your innate ability to the work that you have to do. So I suppose in an ideal, world, and some companies do it, the HR department do try to match you to your God-given ability. And of course that may have been the career path you would have chosen anyway, right? You would have been in IT because you'd have, loved working with computers. You would have been in safety because you have some idea of, trying to keep workers safe, etc. So hopefully by the time you get to the HR department, you are already in your life's journey in discovering what is your innate ability and tapping into that anyway. So as a safety, we really don't try to change the aptitude, but we try to match your aptitude, to the best way for you to do a job. So we have 3 definitions here: attitude, behavior, perception. And again, you can just have a read of them. There's some sort of link between them though, which is that it really should be taken from the last one first, which is if you are able to change a person's perception. This is just in respect to culture though. If you're able to change a person's perception, you would be able to change their attitude. And once you change their attitude, their behavior will follow. Now, how do we change their perception? Well, we did this already. This is the chapter on, this is not the chapter, but the lesson on communication. When you give the employee, right, information through their senses, verbal, written, and graphic. What is done, then you are able to change their attitude. So once the attitude will be changed from their perception or from the information that you are giving them, what is that their behavior would follow. I guess a typical example is that you may have seen somebody using, a ladder, and to that person, using the ladder is the safest thing in the world. But then somebody shows them a video, a graphic communication of maybe not using a ladder, to stand and paint on, but perhaps to use a scaffold instead. And then the attitude will change. They would say, it's best that we use a scaffold, right? So once the attitude change, and they have the attitude now not to use the ladder, to stand on anyway, but the scaffold, then what you'll find now that the behavior will follow the individual's action due to the attitude and the perceived environment. So that's a bit of psychology there that we teach a bit in some of the higher levels. Certificate students don't have to know what I just said. You may just want to honestly just have a look at this definition. Perception has come before, but many years ago, perhaps more than 10 years ago, the definition for perception was there for exam, right? This is just a little exercise. If you all could have a go at this and see if you could read this. It says a bird in the bush, but in fact it's actually not a bird in the bush, right? So I'll leave this one out. Maybe if you see it, you can probably just put it in the comment section. What are the arrows pointing to? Again, I'll leave this one out. If you have any idea, just put it in the comment section. I'll give you a reply. And then see if you could read this. Again, I would not read this. See if you could read it and just put in the comment section that you can read it or you cannot read it. What was it all about, though? Or what was those exercises all about? These exercises were just to tell you that you may have thought it was this way, and really it is another way, right? And that is the concept for health and safety. Somebody may think that, a safety glasses is not important, or, following the proper procedure is not important, but then it is important to the end, right? So you can alter a person's perception by providing the appropriate information, instruction, training, and supervision. Attitude towards something can be changed if the perception is changed, and again, once the attitude is changed, the behavior would actually follow as well, right? A great way of doing that is using propaganda or awareness campaigns, which would have covered. That is basically presenting the employee with information, verbally, written, and graphic. For example, we covered this on the notice board, the health and safety committee, all of that talk safety, eat, sleep, and breathe safety 24/7. That is what we call health and safety propaganda anyway. And by doing that, by putting all of those programs and safety meetings and notice boards and safety committees, we are hoping to alter the person's behavior first by starting with the perception, attitude, and of course behavior would follow, right? So I'll leave this. Awareness campaigns, we would have covered some of these before in verbal, written, and graphic. Motivation is a driving force which makes an individual act. Motivation involves a need, a drive, incentive, reward, reinforcement. So again, nothing here really for exam. This is just telling you that when we do plan those campaigns, we plan it with a certain goal in mind, right? So we try to figure out what will make the employees motivated. For some workers, it's going to be a reward. For some workers, it's going to be reinforcement. For some workers, it's just, more or less that they have this drive to excel then. So once we could figure what the workers want, and we promise that in the safety campaign, we are able to be effective, right? This particular chart is off your syllabus. You can probably just have a look at it. There's nothing here to learn. This whole thing would have been, though, that if health and safety is not managed, at least nothing to learn at this level anyway. It is covered in the level 6, right? So just to know that if health and safety is not managed, if we do not, take care of the, like the formula, the individual, the organization, if they don't take care of health and safety, you'll find that the company is going to have errors and violations, and the outcome of these are never good. You may have skilled people making errors, making mistakes, and then out of these, believe it or not, out of these slip of action, lapse of memory, rule-based mistakes or knowledge-based mistakes, people do die, right? So people can have accidents, property damages, etc. So once you have, for example, make it just probably do a simple one. If, for example, someone makes, let's say, a rule-based mistake. A rule-based mistake is that you are following a rule, but it's the wrong rule, right? You're applying it the wrong way. So you could have an accident coming out of that, and then you may have, like, for example, a death out of that as well. Violations, you could have routine, situational, exceptional. A routine violation is something that happens all the time. So if in a company the speed limit says 25 kilometers per hour, but the vehicles, the forklifts are custom driving 100 miles per hour, kilometers per hour, that there is a routine violation, right? It may be seen to be normal, but the sign does say 25, right? But it's just on a normal day, everybody speeds, right? So you can have a look at this if you want to, out of your syllabus anyway, but really some nice stuff. All this really tells you is that if health and safety manage, you're gonna have human failures anyway, right? So we have it on this slide, an error. What is an error? Basically, an error is something that is unintended, but it does result in an undesirable outcome. We have violations. Violations are a deliberate deviation from rules or procedures. For example, the one I mentioned, the speed limit may be 25 kilometers per hour, but the companies, they are custom driving at 100, right? So that's a deliberate deviation. I guess simpler ones could be, the sign says PPE beyond this point, but no one is wearing it, right? It's a deliberate deviation. The managers are not wearing it, the workers are not wearing it, more or less, etc. Right? So just maybe the ended slide here. Increased experience is associated with the ability to become more competent and to increase the ability to cope with situation. However, familiarity breeds contempt, and complacency can lead to a tendency to cut corners. Age and experience may be correlated with accident susceptibility. Just interesting though, that when you first start off working, they said this is going to be the highest rate of accidents. You may have entered a company with a poor attitude. As you stay there and they provide you with information, verbal, written, and graphic, and all the safety campaigns, you'll find less accidents. But what they say is that as you grow older anyway, you may tend to still go back and cut corners. You may still find that your way then is better, right? Of course, you may think it's better, and you may have gotten away with one or two, times of cutting corners, but it's not better anyway. So age and experience, may see it, especially age anyway. Age here may seem to be more linked with an increase in accidents, after a certain period of time anyway, right? So I do have a past paper for this one. Let me just get into that a bit. Right? Right, so let's see if we can find. Again, these are some of the the older looking ones anyway, right? And again, that I said that you all before NEBOSH website at the moment that just have really one past paper, right? So this lesson apparently I was able to fit it in the half hour. It's still about 9-10 minutes to go again. So I'm not too sure if the year is important for you because you don't have access to it, but let me just try to show you the year. One of those older ones, right? Examiner's report, National Journal Certificate, at least when it was called NG1, still anyway. Let's get this now. And this should be around I think it's around December, right? December 2008, right? So just to get back to number 6 there. So what you can do, I know you wouldn't have it and you would not have access to it on the NEBOSH website. You can possibly maybe just pause the video and copy it down or take a picture of it, whatever you all do anyway, right? The answers are also with it, which I would possibly just read through because I think we covered it already, right? Let me just get back there. So it is number 6. So number 6, there's one shot down here again, right? So Identify the reasons an employee might require additional health and safety training at a later stage of employment within an organization, right? So just quickly, the mark is 8 marks, so you want to give them 8 answers. The verb is identify, so you could just write maybe a sentence is good enough there. One sentence or two, I guess it depends on you, but really one sentence is good enough there anyway, right? And you want to give them 8 separate answers. So identify the reasons an employee might require additional, and this is the key to it here, not really induction training, but additional health and safety training at a later stage of employment, right? I think before I guess I read that out for you, we would have covered this before. We would have mentioned things like change in technology, change in legislation, change in process. The person may have been may have volunteered for the role of a first aider, or they may have been elected as a safety representative, etc. So that's just about 4 there without even reading this, right? So let's take it from here now. So in answering this question, candidates were expected to identify reasons such as the introduction of new processes, equipment, and methods of work as a result of a job change, which might involve the allocation of additional responsibilities. For example, an appointment as a first aider, following the introduction of new legislation, following an accident or incident. That's a really good one, by the way, a really simple one, where risk assessments indicate that additional control measures are necessary, where refresher training is required, such as for forklift, it should probably be lift truck operators and first aid personnel. As a result of staff appraisal, that's also a nice one. Maybe they did an appraisal on you and realize you need to get some more information, right? And to counteract the possibility of employees becoming complacent and lax in following established procedures for health and safety, right? Most candidates provided good answers, though some appeared to misunderstand the question and referred to initial or induction training that should be provided for young or new employees. I don't think that is what the question required. It did say additional training at a later stage of employment, right? So I would bring this session down anyway, right? Just about 27 minutes there. So this one is definitely within the time anyway, right? So please remember to get some work done. I think I've actually run out now of the papers that were backing up, unless if I missed anybody along the way, right? So you could still do this, send it in for me, and return to you, right? Today is actually Easter Sunday, so I know most people are home anyway. Still try to develop some sort of regime with your work, right? I try to make the certificate videos just about half an hour anyway. Next week though, we're gonna start chapter 4, the chapter on risk assessments. And again, I think I'll break that up into how it would have been on a Saturday anyway. Again, those sessions would have lasted like 4 weeks, right? A month. So I guess we can do the same with the videos, right? So I was saying today's Easter Sunday, so happy Easter to everyone out there. Stay safe and take care of yourself and your families. All right, this is Mr. Shadrach again, wishing you all the best. I'll see you with another video next week. All the best. Bye.